To basically put this radio in, you need some simple things. And the first thing you need is a plan. And that plan starts with making sure that you have gone to an appropriate website or radio dealer to make sure that the radio you have selected is appropriate in chassis size and will work in your car. This one I have done that, and according to the site and all the research, it's supposed to work. However, it doesn't go directly in. It is a standard size. Now, what I have in my particular Yaris is what they call an integrated radio. And how you tell the difference is, if you have a radio that has sort of a square shape to it, or a box shape, you probably have an industry standard radio. If your radio has sort of a dashboard shaped center console shape like this, and it's got the color of your car's interior, and it's rounded and nice and uniform and shaped and looks oh so fancy and pretty, and has all the little knobs and dials poking out, and it looks like it's made into the trim of the car, it's probably an integrated radio. Now, what you'll need to do then is you'll have to get an additional part, which you don't see on the bench. I'm one day shy of getting that part in according to Federal Express. So what you'll need to do is call a dealer, give them your VIN number, and ask them for the dashboard bezel for the radio. And they can look that up, they'll give you the part number, and they'll confirm it, and that's what you need. Now, what comes with this, you'll get a radio, will come with a wiring harness. Now this is half of the thing that we're going to make up today. This is the part that goes into the radio. It has colors and all labeled specifically according to the instructions for that model radio. They will differ depending on what radio you have. You will also get, or you should order, a Toyota specific harness kit. It has the part that plugs into the car, and again wires on one end. And what we're going to do here in a little bit is we're going to join these two pieces together. There are different ways you can do that. Then you turn and screw in a pressure connection on both sides, and it makes it. But these little plastic guys can make a little noise, and you can tape them and so that they don't rattle behind the dash. They also have a different type of connector you might want to look into. These like little nylon. These guys are a butt connector as well. They're a little tube. The colors are gauge wire specific, and you can crimp them with a crimp tool, and you'll have on the sides of your crimp tool insulated in the gauge and that sort of thing. It will lead you right to it. Or you can use what I'm going to use. These are called weatherproof butt connector, and they're the same thing, except that instead of using a hard nylon connection like this, what these are is these have a piece of shrink tubing, and when I put my connection together, I crimp them down, and then I heat them with a heat shrink gun, and what they'll do is they'll draw up, and they will ooze, a little bit of glue will just ooze out of them, and it will seal around them, and it will hold a nice tight mechanical connection. It will hold a weather tight connection. I don't really need that, but it makes a nice, quiet, soft, no noise producing joint that's a little more flexible than either of these two wire connection styles. Now, another option yet that you have, you can use a soldering gun, and you can solder your connections. And what you would do is you'd use a gauge of wire appropriate piece of shrink tubing. You would crimp or take your wire, and you'd put them together, and you would twist them together, solder them, and you just have to remember that what you do is you'd slide your piece of shrink tubing first, and then when you pull them back over your joint, heat this up, it shrinks down. It's like tape, except that this won't unravel. It's a little neater way to do it. It makes a smaller joint size than this big mollygog, or even this one, because this one you have a piece of metal, like an aluminum or metallic tinned metal sleeve that has to be crunched down. So I'm going to make it up and show you the result. there is the finished harness, and I see that we've got them put together. These are the two Toyota ends. This is the radio end. We have two wires we're not using in this configuration. We have mute and power. This is for an amplifier. If you had it, it would signal the amplifier we're coming on, the radio's on. This right here, one set of speakers, rear speakers. We have the front speakers, and we have the power over here, the dash illumination, so that tells you when to dim them when we're in night mode. I went ahead and pulled these wires off like this, using the blue because that's for a little bit bigger gauge of wire than the pinks. Pull those off like that, so that would be able to feed a satellite receiver if we needed to. Actually, we only need power, continuous, and ground for that. But while I had them in there, I can go ahead and make a connection in the future off the harness without having to cut into the wiring. And see how nice and neat the shrink tube type of connector makes it. They shrink it nice and small, and that will fit well behind the radio.